So thank you all for being here. So we're going to jump straight in. So I've been learning from the wonderful Linda Tai, who's teaching a somatic regulation strategies course. And she's sharing a lot of content with us, which she's calling stuck in survival. It's not strange to hear about trauma these days, but it is strange that we all are dealing with it as separate individuals, whereas community is what we need. And community can be a little bit of what we've been lacking in terms of why we are dealing with trauma. So I would just like to share a few slides with you. We're going to share, first of all, can you see this slide here? This is a more holistic view to conceptualizing trauma and stress. Can you guys see that? Give a thumbs up if you can. Yeah. So it's getting past the mindset that trauma is something very at the extreme end that happened to you. Trauma can be also something that didn't happen for you. So that was a bit of a moment for me in understanding that trauma can either be too much or too little of something, or too sudden. And in that suddenness that we haven't had enough time or enough resources to process. So you can see here in the slide, this is what she's saying. Without adequate time, space, permission, protection, or resources for the nervous system to return to homeostasis. So a trauma survival response gets stuck in the nervous system. So what we're experiencing is something that happened that we didn't have adequate resources to process in the moment. So this is what we're experiencing when we start to feel that embodied response to trauma. So this is when we become stressed. And when we become stressed, you can see here what causes stress. It might be a lack of information, a lack of transparency or trust around that, a lack of certainty, predictability, and commonly a loss of agency. So that's something that I think we can all experience at some point in our life, or a lot of us have, during the societal institutions that we're here, where we don't actually have control. We lose that agency and sometimes even that dignity. And that can be then what causes us to be stuck in this loop. But in bold, how she's put here at the bottom, isolation from emotionally supportive relationships. And this is something that we are growing in understanding, that in order to recover from trauma, we do need a supportive relationship, that co-regulation is actually essential for us as mammals, but certainly as humans. Like 1/3 of our brain has grown for social interaction. And it's incredibly important for us to feel like we're part of a collective in order to feel safe. So you see here, traditional psychology would ask, what is wrong with you? But a trauma-informed psychology asks, what happens to you? And culturally informed psychology asks, what happens to your people? But the liberation psychology is what happened to people, but what continues to happen. So it brings us to that wider space of understanding healing as being a community, a collective, and a political agenda. So just taking that in, taking a breath. You may want to take your own hand, or I invite you even just to take up some space. So that can be reaching up to the top corners of the room, but then also then bringing it in and making yourself really small. Reaching up to the corners of the room and bring it in small. And also just taking a look all the way to the left, all the way to the right, orientating back to your space. Okay, so my sharing. next. We're going to move to, I want to share with you a view of how trauma can affect then our relationships, being that these are the important method for healing. What we find ourselves doing when we have a trauma related to relationships, which is known as attachment trauma. So when something happened to us that was in relation to connection with usually one of our primary relationships with our primary caregivers, we can actually move into this space where trauma replaces the pattern of connection with patterns of protection. And I know I've been there when protecting myself seems more important than connecting with somebody else. And I love this Bessel van der Kolk quote. So Bessel is the author of the book, The Body Keeps the Score, which I recommend. It's best-selling reading for people who are interested in this mind-body connection and how we can really unlock our healing for our mental health through the body, which we're going to get more into next. But as he says here, if you feel safe and loved, your brain becomes specialized in exploration, play, and cooperation. But if you're frightened and unwanted, it specializes in managing feelings of fear and abandonment. So it's understanding as well that through this developmental stages with our primary caregivers, and then often then as we are stuck in this pattern of protection in our future adult relationships, our brain has actually developed a little bit differently to specialize in managing fears of fear and abandonment. And understanding that is the key to starting to create change. Okay, so I just invite you guys just to take a breath with me, but we'll do a little breath exercise. So I'm going to invite you to take a breath in for 4, hold for 7, and then breathe out for 8. Okay, so breathing in, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, exhale, let it all out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Do one more, breathe in for 4, hold for 7, and breathe out for 8. That longer exhale drops us deep into our parasympathetic nervous system, which is the area of the body, the area of the nervous system, which heals. So when we are in a sympathetic nervous system state, that's when we're feeling stress, but that's when we're ready for action. When we're in a parasympathetic nervous system state, that's when we're in rest, and that's when our body can repair. So just knowing that when you breathe in, and then you extend the exhale, you're dropping into the parasympathetic. But that pause in the middle is equally important to take between a stressful situation and moving forward into a healing capacity. So the encouragement there throughout these practices is just to take a moment to pause. Okay. I'm going to come back to our slides. I'm going to share with you this beautiful depiction. Now, I'm skipping through a lot of the content because what I'm trying to share with you in a 2 hour window is 8 hours of teaching. But I'm jumping straight to the tables with the most content on. So there's a lot of information here, but let's break it down. Okay, so when something happens, we're in this space of a fright. Then the first thing we do is we reach for that community support. There is an attachment cry that happens. So just taking that in, the first thing we do when we feel stressed is we look for support. Now, trauma happens when we don't get that support. So it's worth really taking this in, that it's not what happened to you. The essential first step is that lack of support that we received. So there were children who in the Second World War were sent away from their parents for safety, who experienced more trauma than the children who were at home with their parents, who were able to be comforted during the times of fright. So if we reach for an attachment cry, and the training I'm doing is predominantly for psychologists, and she even says what will happen is if we start to feel stress, sometimes our hand will start to claw up. And that's the body is reaching. So this is where I advise you can take hold of your comfort object. So for me, I have an orange here. You may have just something that you can hold, or you can hold your own hand. And that satisfies that attachment cry. So if you're thinking about a time when you weren't supported, then you can take hold of something in that moment, and that creates that support network to your brain. And what you can also then do is you can move it from right hand to left hand to right hand again. So this is while you're processing, and you can be in a place if stuff comes up for you and you're thinking, I wasn't supported at that time, you can move from left brain to right brain to feel, to deal. So this is creating a loop where we get to feel and process our emotions on the emotional side, and then also on the logical side, which is you're here now. And your here and now is where the healing happens in the present moment. So once we have realized that sometimes we don't have that support, I have a supportive orange right now, so I'm feeling okay. But there have been times in the past where I didn't have anything or anybody. And then what comes in is the panic. And the panic is what then creates the flight, fight, freeze response. As you can see in the table here, and you guys can see this table, yeah? We have the panic creates a flight response. If you can't get yourself to safety, then there will be a rage that comes up, which can create a fight response. And if that isn't working for you, then the terror will create a freeze response. So you guys will potentially have familiarity with all of these, or you will notice it in other people. But you can see the scale in which this normally escalates. So it's understanding that as well, that the first thing we need is support. Supportive friends are better than oranges, but if orange is what you have, then you can send that symbol to your body. But otherwise, one of the trickiest but most effective things to learn is coming out of that pattern for connection, pattern for protection, back into pattern for connection. So rather than going, okay, this person has triggered me, now I'm not safe, I need to protect myself. We skip the attachment cry, we go straight to panic. If we can say, hey, actually, I just need you to be calm and supportive for me right now. We can name what our needs are. And generally speaking, the people around us that are triggering us, family, partners, work colleagues, If we ask for a moment of calm, then we will get it. Or if we ask for what we need, then we should get it. But the key thing here is trying to ask before we get to this panic, fight, flight stage, because otherwise, what can come out is known more as violent communication. There's I can't remember the name of the author, maybe one of you will fill me in, the book of non-violent communication, which is a skill really worth learning if you want to avoid all of this fight, flight, freeze. Because if you can come in with a non-violent communication attachment cry, you will get the support straight away. Oof, crisis averted. Easier said than done, but what I'm trying to offer you here is some seeds that might start to sprout in these situations that can be supportive for you and the people around you. Otherwise, once we start to panic and we can get stuck in these loops, these coping loops. Oh, that's it, AJ. Thank you. Marshall Rosenberg. That's the author of the Nonviolent Communication book. Really excellent book. Yeah, and he's got it on YouTube as well. And AJ's my partner, and he knows all too well the importance of the nonviolent communication study that we've been doing together, don't you? Appreciate you. So coming back to just looking around this table now, what we can see here are some ways in people get stuck. Oh, I didn't mention the dip that happens. So it goes flight, fight, freeze, and then dip, feign death. And that is just ultimate freeze. That is collapse. And that's where a lot of us ended up in the past. And that's where the trauma loop has been unfinished. If we managed to run away, it would be complete. If we managed to fight out, it would be complete. If we froze and then came back to safety, it would be complete. But if we end up in this feigned death, it all is lost. And what we end up doing then is we send a message to our brain that we can't get ourselves out of danger. And that's a tricky place to be in a dangerous world. And that's where we end up with these mental health conditions. So you can see on here, if we don't get our attachment cries met, and often this is at a young age, we end up with potential for borderline personality disorder. And what that is generally is thinking that everybody is out to get you in varying levels. If we get stuck on this panic, no one's there, I've got to get myself out of here to safety, that can become more of a generalized anxiety disorder, panic attacks, and just what people would know as they're suffering and living with anxiety. When people get stuck a little, they get more into this rage response is their go-to. So this is what's worked for them in the past, where they come into this fright and then they can just directly go to rage. You can end up with these disorders listed here: conduct disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, intermittent explosive disorder. Now, I know these kind of disorders are often diagnosed in children. And these are children who have realized that they can't get help, they can't get themselves out of a situation, so they go straight to fight. And then they're called things like defiant, oppositional defiant. And then if you end up in this freeze response, panic disorder, that's often when the body goes into shutdown. Freeze will just be unable to communicate, and then often also panic attacks where the body is literally trying to engage you out of freeze into fight or flight, and you end up with this back and forth going on inside, and that can override. So what we have there, when we end up in a state which is known as high freeze, you have both the sympathetic nervous system, which is action, and the parasympathetic nervous system, which is trying to put you down into collapse to keep you safe, they're both online. So you end up in this state of then just collapse. And then that's like, I can't do anything other than pretty much play dead. And that's where we end up with chronic depression. And a lot of people then just feel that weight of their nervous system of, I want to get myself out of here, but I don't believe that I can. So we're talking about the nervous system state. I mentioned to you the parasympathetic, sympathetic. Just to the last point to recognize on here, over to the left, where we have parasympathetic, sympathetic, dorsal, and ventral vagal. So we'll jump into a little bit about the nervous system in a moment, but you can see here we have a blended nervous system. We used to just think we would be either on sympathetic or off parasympathetic, but also since polyvagal theory was brought to us, and again, I can't remember the name of the guy that brought that out, but he introduced us to a more blended nervous system understanding, where we're not just on or off, but we can also be more social, or we can be more in a space of shutting down and moving away from feeling like we're able to be social. Okay, so we're going to jump into that in a moment, but let's just bring us back into the room. It's taking a deep breath and just letting that sink in. You may want to just have a little bit of a wiggle, orientate yourself back into your space. So looking to the left, looking around, to the right. You want to move the mouth and the nose around a little bit, one this way and the other way. And just, really relaxing through the face. And we're going to bring us into the nervous system by, I want you just to feel then your feet on the ground and just stamping your feet into your ground in space. Maybe squeezing the glutes, squeeze your bum, and then relax. That's it, AJ, taking up space. You want to fill up your belly and then relax. So there's a technique called diaphragm breathing, where we breathe to fill ourselves up and then we let everything go. So the diaphragm, which is just beneath your lungs here, it's the breathing muscle, and that's actually the gateway to the vagus nerve. So everything that's happening above the diaphragm, that is the ventral vagus nerve. So the ventral vagal, it's like this, it's like open, is our social branch. So when we're in this ventral state, hey, we are ready to connect with people. But when we're in more of a dorsal state, so that's underneath, we're more shut down and we don't want to connect with people, and we're in sleep, depression, dropping into a state of needing to be calm. And so the diaphragm being the gateway to that, we can bring ourselves up into a ventral state by taking a big breath in. And as you breathe, I want you to expand into the side and the back of your diaphragm. So take a big breath in and expand, holding at the top where we're creating resilience for ourselves. And then let everything go. And if you out through the lips as well, it gets all the air then out of the diaphragm. So breathing in and expand. Smile at the top, pause, and then let that go. Yeah, that's a lovely release that came through there. So let's just do one more together. Breathing in. And if you like, you can unmute to make a little sound as you breathe out. We make a big sound together. Okay, is there anyone feeling like making any sounds at any point? Very, very much welcome in the space as we come into.
Amy, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Brenda. Hey.
Hey, sorry, can you see me at all?
No, you're very dark, but I can hear
New
you.
PC, sorry. I can see and hear everything. Yeah,
Great to have you present, brother.
lovely to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for sharing some lovely sounds with us. So, yeah, being so, I think that was great. Like feeling that we want to come into this social space where we can. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to share a little bit, if you feel to, as we're going to look at the window of capacity. So, does anyone have familiarity with the window of capacity? Has anyone looked at this before? Anyone got awareness? Yeah, over there. What is it? What is it that you know about it, and anything you can like to share? We can go straight to the sharing screen if you prefer. Um, let's have a look. So back to my slides. But these are Linda Ty's slides. Really, really sending so much love to this woman, Linda Ty, as a great asset. And she really encourages community sharing because as we are understanding, we are all in this together and having as much as possible of like free or low cost education for people on this subject is so, so important. Okay, guys, so now we're looking here at the window of capacity. Can you see this okay? Is it okay? So what we've got in the middle, this lovely space of feeling social, feeling safe, feeling engaged. So we can think and feel simultaneously without overwhelm. So that's interesting, isn't it? Knowing that otherwise, if we're not in this safe space, sometimes thinking and feeling we can't do them simultaneously. We're either stuck on the thought, which is one side of the brain, or the feeling, which is the other side of the brain. So feeling optimal is when both sides of the brain can communicate together. And that's again why doing this bilateral stimulation, move to one side to the next. With this, it really helps to strengthen the bond between that, being able to think and feel simultaneously. We also have capacity for self-reflection and taking in the perspective of others or our environment, capacity for patience, empathy, and compassion, for connection to self and others. And I love this bit, curiosity, wonder, imagination, and awe. So if we can engage with our curiosity at any point to really wonder what is going on here, then that starts to engage this optimal part of our energy. So that curiosity is what I'm hoping to be inspirational today for you guys to be able to notice what's happening and be curious about that feeling, that thought, and we're able to feel and think. So if you need to at any point, you can the safe, social, engaged you is here in the present moment. So oftentimes we start going into our brain or we get too much into what's going on out there. But knowing that you can connect with yourself socially and with that engagement of that curiosity of what is going on here, we can bring ourselves out of the past or the danger, the perceived danger, and back into I'm here and I'm curious and I'm going a little bit further with myself with this today. Because otherwise, what can happen if we move out of this window of capacity where we will start to feel that we're not safe? We can move either up or down. And we're saying there could be in that dorsal state, we start to move down. In that sympathetic nervous system state, we start to move up. As we can notice this in ourselves and others. Fidgeting. So we talked about the attachment cry. So we start to feel a little bit like, oh, I'm fidgeting, I need something. Then this often is that take that hand. Irritation and frustration, it's going, okay, my capacity is getting low. I can't actually deal with very much. Feeling that overwhelmed, looping thoughts, but then also can get defensive in that space as well. It's just like, whoa, I can't handle what's happening. That's when we start heading up towards fight, flight, freeze. If we start heading down to that depressive dorsal state, we just start checking out. So it says here, the lights are on, but no one's home. Why bother? So if we start feeling that despondent tendency, we know we could end up in that shutdown mode. So these just get to show you where you're maybe coming out of your window of tolerance or window of capacity, window of arousal, and you're starting to be aroused either in one direction or the other. So that gives you a cue of what it is you might need. If you start heading into this fidgeting, defensive, too much energy, then you need to try and disperse that energy somehow. So you can even just practice, like practice running on the spot. So you've got your arms and your legs. So we'll just do this quickly together. Take a deep breath in, and then the arms and legs. You can like run, 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 run. Keep running, keep running, keep running. You're doing great. You're almost there. Oh, and slow it down. And give yourself a little hug. You made
Yeah.
it. So that can bring you back when you're starting to feel yourself go into too much energy. That's one way of doing it. Other ways of doing it, you can just do some star punch, maybe some shadow boxing, swinging one way and the other, like this kind of twisting can also be really effective. Because what we're doing here is we're bringing us back into that ventral state as well of engaging through the diaphragm. But if you start to drop, you start not caring, then actually you need to just bring yourself back into a space of safety where you can, again, it's like comforting, you're not going to shut down, you're going to show yourself you're safe. So giving yourself that hug and that gentle rock, more gentle with this one, stroking your own face, but also looking up and looking up at whilst sort of holding yourself, you can start to bring yourself up and out, but squeezing the shoulders back. So try this one with me. Squeeze, 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 squeeze at the back, and then release. And even taking your own shoulders and rolling them back and down. And the same, you can squeeze the bum, squeeze, 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 squeeze the bum and release. Or even you can take this little pelvic thrusting. And what these, or you can do slalom hips as well. And what this is doing, it's showing that you have been able to bring yourself into safety, but you're not going from shut down to too much energy. You're coming through that gentle safety. So yeah, just letting that sink in, just feeling, just for a moment, just checking in with your own body, feeling what felt good about some of those exercises. And also, if anybody does feel like sharing, maybe I'll just hop to this next one. Oh, actually, where was my next one? Sorry, 1 second, guys. Week 221.
I think something that's really nice about using those practices is that the more you do them, the more you become accustomed to choosing certain ones when it feels good to. So just
Yeah.
like playing around with them, practicing them when you don't need them. When you do actually need them, you'll know which ones feel good for that moment.
So that you've played around with some of these sort of things already, haven't you, AJ? Is there like
I'm a big
you've
fan of
been really
2 minute
successful?
practices. I'm doing 2 minute practices each day, and I find like if I've gotten too over the top energized, I can calm myself down with a short practice. And if I feel really, um, too relaxed, if I'm slow to get going, I can use some exercises to boost me up. And the same as if I feel frustrated, I've got like, I like to use omming if I feel like anger or certain emotions
Mm.
arise.
Yeah, beautiful. So making that sound. And
Hmm.
I'm going to tell you guys in a minute about the five cranial nerves that are basically responsible for communicating from the brain down. And that one, like making a sound, it not only communicates to the glossopharyngeal nerve, but you
A
can't
mouthful.
make a sound whilst you're in danger, can you? So again, it sends that messages that you're feeling safe. Perhaps we'll do a nice om together. That's a lovely idea, AJ. If you guys open to this, you can unmute or stay muted. We'll just share a little bit of sound together. So first of all, just taking a breath in for yourself, feeling your way into your present moment in your body, and breathing out. We take a breath in and we're going to make the sound om together. Om.
Um,
One more breath in for yourself, feeling the vibrations of om in your heart, mind, body, and soul. Such a lovely reset practice. Thank you for sharing that, AJ.
Pleasure.
Okay. So I'm going to leave this diagram here just for one more moment. Just maybe 30 seconds silence where you guys can oh, just come back to the screen share, Amy. Just for a moment, just to think about where you've been and where you want to be in this optimal space and what connects personally for you. Knowing that you can move up or down through this capacity and that you are able to bring yourself back into optimal space. Okay. So this one, there's a few diagrams here. So we're moving into week 2 of Linda Ty's 12-week course now. And just some images there, just to sort of, again, just for you to sort of feel into where you've been. And what we can see here on the side, we're getting a little bit more into understanding the nervous system. So the sympathetic, so that's on our fight, flight, freeze, unsafety, hyperarousal. It isn't always to do with unsafety. Like there's a little bit of a blending that happens here where our sympathetic nervous system can also be excited, energized, engaged, like you're gonna perform, you're gonna share with people. I mean, I'm definitely in my sympathetic here sharing with you guys, and I keep having to remembering to exhale because
Mhm.
when we're in a sympathetic state, we're breathing in, breathing in, breathing in. But within that, we can drop into this balanced state, which can be this safety zone in the middle, where we're breathing in and out for equal measures. So one thing you can do with that is you start to count. So before we did the 4, 7, 8 breath, but you can count in for 5 and then out for 5. In for 5 out for 5, and even placing a hand on the heart. This will bring what's known as your heart rate variability into balance. And another thing that's very effective within this practice of calming your heart rate variability, which is one of the main things that dictates how our nervous system responds, is the variability in our heartbeat. So when we breathe in for 5, out for 5, hand on heart, gratitude. Gratitude is such a huge piece for calming anxiety. Because much like you can't make a sound when you're in danger, gratitude wires the brain to come back into feeling positive and hopeful, but not only hopeful, appreciative. So it fills in that attachment cry. It brings us to that space where we're getting what we need. So that's the way we can then drop in down into the middle. And you see in the middle here, in this safety zone, you actually have all 4 branches of the nervous system engaged. They can be sympathetic, parasympathetic, which, if you remember, is our healing. So we've got fight, flight, freeze, and then we've got rest and digest and repair, which is the parasympathetic, which is all the way at the bottom is I'm going to sleep or I'm shutting down. But again, we can be in a bit of a sympathetic state even when we're feeling more aroused. We can be in that borderline, I'm about to give up, but I'm just going to start winding down for bed. It doesn't always have to be in the negative. And then the ventral and the dorsal. So the ventral, again, is social, and the dorsal is shut down. So everything above the diaphragm is where the ventral part of the vagus nerve runs, and everything below the diaphragm is where the dorsal part of the vagus nerve runs. So it's understanding that we're in this blended nervous system. Okay, let's see. Okay, so what often happens to us is we have a need that brings out an attachment cry. If we don't get the attachment cry met, we can slip into then rage if we go a few steps too far, which can also come with then shame. So then we have this whole story going on. It's very complicated. It might have just been, hey, can I have this orange? And then you didn't hear me. And I'm like, you don't care about me anymore? Now I'm telling myself a story that you don't care. And now I'm angry at you. And then I feel ashamed of myself because that you didn't actually do anything. It was me. It was my misunderstanding. Either that or I didn't communicate effectively, or my request was unreasonable, or there's something that then fills me with shame, instead of being in a capacity to be able to just learn and be like, oh, sure, sorry, I didn't communicate very well. We get caught up in these stories. So this table here, I think it's very valuable for us to be able to understand that depending on where we are with what we have as our loop. So I'll just come back to this diagnosis of dysregulation. So depending on how we came up through this world, we can get stuck on these responses. Or for any situation, depending on how activated you are in outside of your window of tolerance. Like if you've already had a really stressful time, you're already going to be more activated. Then you're more likely to go up into the sympathetic response. Flight, fight, freeze. So you see the stories that we can tell ourselves. the fight one, for example, like me fighting for the orange, I must get what I want. But then the key thing to understand with these trauma loops that we're on is the fact that we have this loop in us is it feels like life or death. Our body is now just in this state of rage. If I don't get this orange, I'm going to die. So there's the story is I don't get what I want. That's my brain, but my body is going, this is feels like life or death. The flight story might be, I need to get out of here. When will this be over? Like, when will this be over could be what I'm telling myself, but my body is feeling, I need to get out of here. This is life or death. And then the freeze response is, I don't want you to look at me. There's nobody here. Like, I don't want to be seen. I will make myself invisible. So the story that can come, from the attachment cry that we see in the middle here is, I can't do this without you. I need you. And then you see how quickly then that can escalate as we start to drop down. I'll be alone forever. Nobody cares. Nobody loves me, which is awful. It's awful to think that, but like certainly that's something that I have felt a lot in my life because of what was programmed into my brain as I was coming up through by my attachment cries not being met was that the story that I ended up with in my head was nobody cares about me. And then the story of disconnection says this is how we come into now we need to protect ourselves. No one cares about me. Why even bother? And then that's a shutdown. And then that's the depression. And depression is like, it's on the up and it's on the up. And it's recognizing that we don't get these attachment cries met early on. And I'm talking about childhood here or early on in a relationship. Then we can go through this, why even bother? Okay. Move through to the next slide. So just taking a deep breath in, just taking a moment just to connect with yourself, maybe hand on the heart, or you can hold your own hand. You're doing great. On the shoulder. And knowing that somewhere along the line, somebody wasn't there for you, but actually it's okay now. We're all here together. Even friendly little orange here should have drawn a face on this guy. So keeping yourself in your environment, just checking in where you are, looking behind you, looking around, looking below. Okay. Okay, so 33. And just this table here just shows a little bit extra on where we're at with what can happen when we get stuck on these responses. Addiction is normally a flight response. It's an escape. And if you're fear of pain, fear of being trapped, fear of vulnerability, if you need spaciousness and you need relief now, addiction, substance abuse. Not even just substance, like addiction to shopping, porn. I don't know. I think people can get addicted to anything. It's true. Maybe there's some things that you have unhealthy coping habits for yourself. That's possibly a flight response that's coming through. So knowing that your needs there are spaciousness and thinking about what other needs you might have that you can ask for. And the nonviolent communication, one of the things that stood out for me is you can express to someone, it would make my life more wonderful if you could let me have a bit of space right now. Or you could be aware that on, a few days a week, I just need to be able to do this thing, so you can speak it would make my life more wonderful if you could do this. And then it's about knowing what boundaries are. What boundaries are is not necessarily being just like straight into fight mode. You didn't give me what I want. It's actually to be like, okay, I need to have a better boundary, as in if I need to have this space for myself and this person keeps interrupting me, then I actually need to go somewhere else. So it's getting out of this. You need someone to give you that you can actually be there for yourself so that you're not actually trapped in a relationship situation. When we're children, we are essentially trapped in a relationship situation. Children can't just up and leave, but grown human beings can. And knowing that you can always come to a friend, and I'd like to think this community is quite extensive, but even taking something, I've got numerous cuddly toys. I don't have any with me here today, but ones that I take with me on the journey, and it helps me to feel that I'm able to make those moves because I have an ally with me. Yeah, that's a little bit, that's been my journey, the flight journey. But for some others, it's the fight, it's the rage, need to feel respected, need to feel in control, fear of being overwhelmed. And I'll give you an option for dispelling the fight response is push. So if this is something that you know that you feel, you can take a big breath in as you bring your arms and shoulders back. And the breath out is just, and you move your body back. You move forward. So you feel like you're pushing away and you're coming back into your space of get away from me, I need to have some control. I am sharing a lot more somatic exercises in my social media groups as well under I'm Amy B, IMAMYBE. So there'll be heaps in there. There's different ways that you can disarm these responses if you notice that this is coming up for you. And then the freeze response is inertia, again, which is that just, I think I'm getting it right with inertia, is just that full collapse. Fear of existential annihilation. How interesting is that? And that's that like fully, like, I'm not worthy of existence feeling. So that's that sort of that shame inertia that can come about. So yeah, with the story-based fear and the attachment cry, again, it's that fear of abandonment, emotional neglect, being discarded, needing to have a rescuer. So it's understanding that if the trauma is an attachment trauma, then we'll probably be hovering in this middle state because we don't want to fight or flight or freeze our way out of a situation. I'm invisible, I'm not here, get away from me. We actually want that connection and that attachment. And without that rescuer, that protector, we're stuck on loop. So this person, this story, if you recognize that you have that as a need, that you really need, that's like that anxious attachment style, that need to be with that person or a person, then it's likely there is an attachment trauma where your attachment cry didn't get met in the future. So it's trying to understand how we can change the story by having this awareness of what the story is. And then see at the bottom, the dorsal, the shutdown, it's that shame that we spoke about with the fear of taking up space, needing reassurance. So this is where people will fully try and hide from the world. So I just give you an opportunity, if you like, just to take that in, take a breath. And if you want, you can hide for a minute. You can just wrap your arms around and be nice and small. Being nice and small, just in space with yourself. And then permission to take up space. If you feel to, reaching big, and you can even do little circles with your arms around, twisting through the body. And then bringing it back in nice and small again. Letting yourself be small, letting yourself be big. Okay. So it's coming back into having a capacity for joy. Because we have this capacity to bring this awareness into our space, and it's all very serious business, this healing. Actually, what we're missing out on a lot of the time as trauma survivors is having that capacity to feel joy and a lot more of what we would call it the higher vibration emotions. So we're going to do a little game just to bring us into expression of joy. It's a game, but it's also stimulation for the brain, you know. If you guys want to play along, you don't have to share your screen, but you can if you want to. What we're going to do, first of all, 2 thumbs, and then 2 fingers. 2 thumbs, fingers, thumb, finger. Okay, so then we're going to go 1 thumb, 1 finger, and then switch. Switch. Oh, switch, 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 switch. Okay, 2 fingers, point up, and thumbs. Fingers up, thumbs, fingers up, thumbs, and then 1 finger, 1 thumb. And switch. And switch. Switch. Oh. And switch. And switch. Okay, 2 thumbs up. Okay, thanks for playing that game with me. But it's like this is something it takes a little bit of time to get it, but also to be able to laugh at your mistakes a little bit. And we'll just do another little silly one. This one is called a joint dance. So you get to move your joints around. So you're moving them above your head. So the joints of your fingers and of your arms. And then moving your knees and your ankles. And just wiggling all of the joints of your body. And then we go in one direction, but with one hand. So we go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Other hand, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then your foot, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Other foot, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And just one of my personal favorites that will just show you a little happy dance. So this one, you get your arms like this, and then we're going to clap at the end. So you go, you're doing the happy dance. You're doing the happy dance. Are we doing the happy dance? Are we doing the happy dance? Woo! Hello, clap. Good. Come back into space. So increasing your capacity for joy is something that I recommend absolutely. Like with me, I don't know where I'd be without my cups of tea. They bring me an immense amount of joy. So if I'm feeling at any point like I feel myself starting to come out of my window of capacity, I'll get a cup of tea. And it can straight away go, oh, okay, I remember I'm on my own side. Are there other things anyone can think of, things that bring them joy that they can go to if they're not feeling great?
I jump on my trampoline
Mm.
and like bring my hands up in the air, like, yoo-hoo, I'm alive.
So
Woohoo, I
much
made it to
joy.
another day.
Yay.
Woo.
Love that.
Great.
Something like that anyway.
Anyone else? What brings you joy?
Yoga.
Yoga, absolutely. I'm with you on that one as well. And a little can go a long way with these things, can't they? So it's, even if you don't feel like sharing in the group, it's good to maybe share it with yourself right now. Just think, maybe put your hand on your heart. Think of something that you're grateful for, something that makes you smile, or someone that brings you joy and that sense of joy.
I do breathing.
Breathing, yeah?
Yeah, like real like
The sharp breath in and then yeah, great. And it's that elevating as well. So anything we can do that elevates our body brings us into this ventral state as well. So if we're feeling that collapse, even looking up, but yeah, like expanding in that way, or bringing the arms up as well, can start to bring the body up into that ventral. Remember, ventral is where the joy, the social interaction is at. So you might be having a really tricky time with someone. So you're like, oh, I'm just so frustrated, I can't communicate with this person. Bring yourself into a ventral state, and your social parts of your brain light up. So you're going to be able to communicate better. And that's what you want, to then be able to start to consciously rewire how things are working out for you. It does start here. We need to balance the heart, and then we balance the brain, and then we balance our communication and our output and the things we do. Okay, so about the brain, let's do a little bit about anatomy, just because I find it was really helpful to understand. So we can go straight into the next slide, which is, we are now on week 3, where we're looking at trauma and attachment this week with Linda. And you can see she got us really connecting with how, oh, hang on, am I screen sharing with you guys? I don't think I am. Sorry. Come to share this. Okay. So how our parents mirror us and how we mirror our parents is what forms those initial patterns in the brain, particularly when it comes to emotional regulation. So what we hope for is that our parent, like this one, will be mirroring the child. But sometimes when we have emotions as children, our parents dismiss them, and that puts us in a point of not being able to regulate those emotions. And the emotions travel always from the brain down into the body. So these are known as the cranial nerves. So the cranial nerves, they affect everything that's going on in this upper area, but also down as far as the diaphragm. And we've got the dorsal ventral, which goes beneath the diaphragm. So we get these messages coming out of the brain into the body, which create a reaction in the body. And the reaction in the body then creates a change in the heart, which then keeps the nervous system in that state. So we've got these 5 main cranial nerves. So you have the vagus nerve, which we've spoken about, which is the main one when it comes to finding regulation, because we've talked about some different exercises that you can do there in understanding what part of the vagus is switched on, whether we're feeling collapse, social or hyperarousal. And then we also have these physcial nerves, which connect to the vagus ventral. So if we want to engage to become more social, we spoke about we can do these above diaphragm exercises, but also thinking of the face. So just when you're looking at somebody's eyes, there's a couple of intense things that we do. If we're starting to get stressed, we sort of stick our eyes out and we stick our chins out and we come forward and my eyebrows come up. If you see, notice the reaction in yourself when I'm talking to you like this. And then, but otherwise, what I can do to soften my state is soften my eyes. So just soft through the eyes, and then I can tuck myself backwards. And then looking forwards, feeling stressed, and then coming back soft. So even just that slight softening through the eyes and a tucking of the chin, we get to affect that ventral state. But other nerves, I just draw your attention. We also have this trigeminal nerve. So the trigeminal nerve, my notes here. Yeah, so this one is more for the jaw and the shoulders. So when we're entering fight or flight, we clench our jaw. Does anybody know why? I only ask because I only learned this recently. We clench our jaw, so it's a survival mechanism, so we don't lose our jaw. If we're going to fight or we're going to run, there would be a portion of poor creatures that would end up losing their jaw and then they can't eat. So we clench our jaw in order to preserve our survival after the fight or flight. I thought that was quite interesting. And also our shoulders come up. So when the shoulders come up, again, this is fight or flight. We're ready for action. So by loosening the jaw, and what I like to do is just give it a little bit of a massage into these muscles and then pull one way and the other way. Like so. And also the shoulders. Again, you can just be giving a bit of a meaty massage to the tops of the shoulders. And roll and lift up and down, shrug, shrug, shrug. What we're doing here is we are turning off that nerve. So what we're doing by connecting to the nervous system here is we're turning off the nervous system response, which has us in hyper or hyperarousal. So, so that one's the trigeminal, and then also the facial nerves. We talked about changing your facial expression, like you can change to a smile. You can
Kettle on.
Kettle on sounds like a plan, Mandy. And we can change by changing our facial expression into looking up and smiling. Again, we can start to affect the nerve response. Then there's, the gloss. This is one I tried to say to you, AJ, earlier. I can say it more precisely now. Glossopharyngeal, the glossopharyngeal. So this one is affecting the throat. So the throat tightens up and closes. And I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this, where your body starts to prevent you from speaking. It's a safety shutdown mechanism to do not speak because it's dangerous. And you might find that your voice goes a bit raspy, or you start to feel like you can't swallow. Or I used to get this sensation like I was being strangled from the inside when my panic started to come on. It would start pulling really tight through here. So again, just to start making some gentle sounds, humming, sigh, just letting the throat, and then the deepest opening in the throat is a yawn. And you can feel that opening coming through the throat with that deep yawning. And again, we're starting to switch off those nerve ending responses. And then there's the accessory nerve. And I love this one. As a massage therapist, this is one, and Mandy will know this one, where we find we have to work this muscle such a lot. The accessory nerve is what makes us curious. So you can see it at the bottom of the diagram here. This seeking muscle. And again, it's that stress, poke, poking forward, and fight or flight, like the flight, often we're trying to get out of there so quickly that our nose is leading us there, or the fight is coming forward. So this muscle is directly linked to the fight or flight system. It's called the SCM, and it runs from the back of the ear to the top of the collarbone. So what you can do with this one is a little bit of self-massage, if you like. So what I suggest is you use the inside of the finger and the thumb to create like a little pinch. So it's this pinch and roll that can happen from the back of the ear, and it runs down to the top of the collarbone. So you can do down one side and down the other side. And I just invite you to continue with this self-massage or any other of these nurturing activities that feel good for you right now. Maybe the jaw, maybe the shoulders, maybe the sounding, maybe the take up space or squeeze. And I'm just going to offer you some affirmations as you're putting this into your body. So I invite you to be embodied with yourself, whether it's the hand on the heart, hand, hold. I'm going to be going through some different practices as I'm speaking. You're welcome to mirror me or drop into your own space. I offer you this. I trust my ability to make effective decisions. I trust my ability to make effective decisions. I give advice only when asked. I give advice when asked. I am valued by others. I am valued by others. I respect my own feelings and I express them appropriately. I express my own feelings appropriately as I respect my feelings. I practice my recovery to develop healthy and fulfilling relationships. I practice my recovery to develop healthy, fulfilling relationships. And I act in a way that encourages loving, healthy responses from people. I act in a way that encourages healthy, loving responses from people. So just staying with yourself, knowing that when we don't have our attachment cries met, sometimes we'll develop alternative ways of responding in this world, known as fawning and appeasement. And oftentimes, this has been to keep us safe. But what it can also do is keep us trapped in a cycle. Because the things we had to do to survive can keep us from living, but yet they keep us alive. Just say that again. The things we had to do to survive can keep us from living, but yet they keep us alive. I'm just going to show you just a couple more slides just to finish. As we moved into week 4. So, being that we're understanding more about how our childhood affects how we act in the world, then it's also bringing that awareness to how multiple childhood trauma experiences and remembering where we were at the beginning isn't just something that happened that was too much. It can also be too little, or it can be too long or not enough, without adequate time, space, or permission in order for the nervous system to return to homeostasis. So being that a lot of children are experiencing this without parents being able to mirror them because they never knew how, is we end up with these adverse community environments. And yeah, you don't have to be out there in the world or under a rock to know that there's poverty in the world, there's discrimination. Excuse me. There's violence, there's poor social care, lack of opportunity. And in some places, there's even things like genocide, enslavement, and disintegration of civil rights. And we can understand, and I think probably we all know on some level, that in healing the trauma in people who can bring that awareness to what it was in their past, whether it was any of the things listed here, maternal depression or neglect, whether there was substance abuse, domestic violence. If these things are happening in people's past, then they are then contributing to the adverse community environment. If we can begin to really nourish and heal and bring awareness by healing ourselves and offering mirroring for the emotions of others, and that is recognizing when fawning and appeasement is in place, when fight or flight, when people are out of their window of tolerance. We start with ourselves, but then we can start to mirror that into society. And that's my journey right now. And I think it's the journey that you guys are on too. Okay, so it was in slide 4. This wheel of power and privilege. I just bring this to you. It's a beautiful rainbow, but it can help us again to be able to feel into where we're at. So keeping yourself present with yourself, holding your heart or your hand. You can just have a little look on where you are on this wheel of power and privilege, because for all of us, we will be nearer the middle, nearer the power in some respects. Like I think most of us speak English, for example. So we're certainly on a privileged, powerful side of having a language. Able-bodied and things, white, citizen, heterosexual, neurotypical, slim, rich, owns property. All these things, sometimes we don't get the chance to actually just feel really grateful. We see it as, oh, it's a problem, but it's not. Just feeling grateful that we have had these opportunities, that we're not in this outer edge where people have significant disabilities, people are homeless, people non-English or monolingual, trans, intersex, non-binary, dark-skinned, large-bodied, etc. But then most of us will be in the middle ground here somewhere. We've just been able to take that in, a nice deep breath, and knowing that as we are coming into capacity to heal ourselves, then we are able then to see how there are these branches, just these few degrees of separation where we can start to support other people. Okay, so, and then I'd just like to just finish. I want to show you, not right now, Susie. Sorry, it's on my Facebook group, which is why we've come onto social media here. So this is in my group, which is I'm Amy B, Community Learning, which I think most of you have found me through. And this image is there to remind you that there is a split in all of us. So being that we can connect at any point to what it is that we're feeling, being able to name your emotions is very powerful. Being able to name some of these low-level emotions is challenging, but to be like, what am I feeling at any point? And you can take your support object, your own hand, and you can say, well, what am I actually feeling? Am I feeling shame, guilt, apathy, grief, fear? And to think, if we are in this space, we want to be able to feel the feelings in the present moment. So if you're feeling ashamed of something that you did, or like actually normally shame is the sensation that I am wrong. Guilt is I did something wrong. Shame is I'm wrong. So you see how that's a step up. If you're feeling shame, you feel fundamentally there's something wrong with you. Actually step it up to guilt. No, there's nothing wrong. I did something wrong. I made a mistake. Okay, so that you see how you can step up. So you can feel the shame in the present whilst feeling something. The orange, your body, some movement, looking around you. Okay, I feel ashamed, but I'm here. Okay, it's not a survival threat. That's what we need to get first of all, being in the present moment with any of the somatic exercises that I've shared, or just feels you, brings you back into yourself in the now. So you can feel that shame. And the shame story has been powerful for me. It's one of the most profound things I've done is to allow myself to feel the shame, because you know what? Nothing happens. I can feel the deepest shame, and actually it's okay. It's safe to feel that because I've allowed myself to feel that. But what we can do is go, okay, I feel that shame, that sentiment that there's something, fundamentally wrong with me, and you feel it without attaching a story. So that's the key thing as well, is we go in our state creates our story. We need to try and get ourselves out of the state of feeling hyper aroused. Oh, everyone's against me, or hyper aroused. What's the point? Nothing matters anyway. We need to bring ourselves back into the room, and that's what these somatic exercises can help us to do. So then we can feel these emotions, and once we actually feel them, we get to let them go. So ways through that can be if you're feeling that you're stuck. So if you're stuck on fear, then maybe you can move gradually to desire rather than what I'm scared of, what I don't want. We can start to move into desire. What is it that I do want? And again, you see how you can just lift yourself out, and just you're coming up and up and up until you can end up back in this space. You see the crossover emotions here, pride and courage. Very interesting to be in a space of like, I have pride, and they used to say that was a sin. That's why I guess it's still on this low level, because pride can be, I guess, maybe selfishness, but pride doesn't have to be selfishness. You can cross over to the space of courage. And courage, again, can be selfishness, but courage doesn't have to be. These two things are you putting yourself, like, I believe in myself. I believe I can get myself out of here. And that's the shift from the trauma is, I can't get myself out of here. Therefore, I'm stuck in this loop trying to get out, but I don't believe that I can. Having courage to do this work is what then gets us out of there. And then we can move up through neutrality. Neutrality is better than feeling aroused. Again, you're back in the safe zone where you have willingness to accept, willingness to maybe try and form a different form of communication with yourself or others, willingness to maybe get yourself out of the situation that isn't good for you, acceptance of what's been, acceptance of what is, reason. So interestingly enough, reason. So this is something about the stories that we tell ourselves often. We will often act out of emotion, and then the reason doesn't come till later when we're back in this centered space. Oh, that's why I did that. Interesting that when they look at the part of the brain that makes decisions, that lights up, that makes decisions, they get someone to do something and then they make the decision afterwards of why they did it. So just offering that as a perspective as well. Sometimes we're doing these things because we're acting out of our developmental brain's neural biology and our nervous system biology. But we have this neuroplasticity, which comes from the awareness. So I say, in the present moment, with awareness, change isn't just possible, it's probable, because we come into a new form of thinking, and our brain very quickly adapts once we're into this new space. And then we get to experience the highest frequency vibrations here: love, joy, and peace. So noticing that people often think that love is the highest. Actually, peace is the highest, because when we are in peace, then we get to feel the full capacity of our experience because we are safe. But the road to peace is with love for self, for others, for life itself, so we can experience joy and come into peace. So just taking a breath, taking that in. You can take another look at this if you want to find this. I say it's in my Facebook group, and if you'd like me to send you a link to that, then it's no problem. That's where I'm going to be sharing a lot more somatic exercises. Okay, it's just crossed 11:11 here in the UK. So it's like 20, maybe 21:12 there now in Australia. We've got those reflective numbers going on. So that seems like a good chance to start to wind this conversation down. I invite you to take a nice big stretch. And I'm going to offer a little somatic meditation to close. So somatic, it's moving the body. So we're going to do a closing little meditation, and then if anyone wishes to share anything afterwards, then I really encourage it, because sometimes your experience has been so different from other people's, but when they hear your experience, it gets them to really recognize their own. But just to drop into this meditation with me, and you're welcome to close your eyes or open your eyes. I'm just going to stop sharing the screen. Okay. So I want you to imagine moving your arms and your little feet, that you're walking. And you're walking in nature. And then you start to feel a little bit of rainfall. So as you start to speed up your walking, you can feel the rainfall now getting heavier. And you can feel the rain hitting your body, your hair, your face. And you start to feel the rain's getting so heavy, you need to start getting home. You start to run. I encourage you now to start little running on the spot. And you're running yourself home. You can feel the rain hitting your skin. And then you get indoors and poof, you close the door. You take pause. And you can hear the rain. And you're listening and you can hear the rain. Some drops are heavy. Some drops are light. Some drops are near. Some drops are far. And invite you even just to make a little sound with your fingers by your ears. You can feel the sound coming into your ears. And then you feel the rain starts to get lighter outside. You can feel the rain start to ease. as you then touching and feel the wet in your hair and your face. And you can just feel the raindrops. So you feel like you wish to go outside again. You open the door. And you can see as you're looking up that there is a rainbow. And I just invite you to reach across and to trace the rainbow with one finger. And then to reach across the other side and trace the next color of the rainbow all the way up and over. And reach across, and now we're getting wider, getting bigger, tracing all those colors of the rainbow right to the end of the rainbow. And you can imagine this big, beautiful, bright color. Then one more right at the outer edge, as wide as you can, this beautiful rainbow arch. And letting yourself smile as the butterfly flies by, and you get to trace the butterfly with your finger. And another one. There's butterflies coming through, tracing with your finger. And then just placing both your hands on your heart now as you feel just joy and gratitude in this moment, this beautiful moment. Breathing in, hold at the top. And breathing out, extending the exhale. And then just connecting back into the present moment, maybe feeling your own hand, looking all the way to the left, to the right, looking around, back in the room, coming back to the screen. Remind you where I am, here in my mum's kitchen, sitting at the table here. There's my body, I have legs. Woo. Okay, thank you guys for sitting through that. I'm hoping that was just the right amount of information for you. But I'm always able to share more. Part of the infliction that I have through life is I quite often overshare. So that's why I wanted just to try and bring us through this as an embodied process. But I do have a group on WhatsApp where I'm sharing a lot more of the academic content, and like some of the people in this chat have come from that group today. But also there's more embodiment practice stuff that is, again, a bit more guided through the body that's going out through me on social media. I also can recommend a lot of resources. So I've recommended a few different books and authors and things today. So if you guys want any more resources, please do let me know. So that'll be checking in afterwards, but just checking in with yourself right now. And knowing that we spend a lot of time in our life fawning and appeasing, I just invite you to be really authentic right now. And, maybe just share for just sort of, maybe 30 seconds to 60 seconds, something about how you're feeling or what you've learned. So yeah, from Sky, love learning about somatic practices. Thank you, gorgeous girl. Oh, thank you, gorgeous girl. That's lovely. Anybody else would like to share? Please feel free.
Thank you so much, Amy. I really appreciate you bringing me on board. It was perfect, actually, because I've been going through a bit of stuff, and just the time of my life at the moment's like no other, obviously, always changing. But yeah, I've just been going through a lot, and so it was actually really good to step out of my head and my body and sort of look at what you'd placed in front of me and just connect and understand. So yeah, I really connected with that. It was very, very appropriate and perfect. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I really appreciate you being here. And I know that things are going to be rippling out.
And that was gorgeous. You delivered that beautifully. So thank you so much.
Thank you for saying. Appreciate that. Yes. Anyone
Hey
else?
Brent, if you're feeling like you need to have a chat, brother, I'm available over the weekend if you want to connect and if yeah,
I
Oh,
we
appreciate that.
find a
Thank
way
you.
off your chest or something, bro.
Lovely, AJ. Thank you.
it's beautiful, AJ. Thank you.
I loved that we switched between doing physical practices and then diving into theory. Like I felt like it really balanced me.
Mm.
Yeah, and I loved that picture of the oh, I've forgotten the name of where all the different nerve bits came out, and
Yeah.
like what makes sense to sound,
Mm.
and with the like the jaw, why it makes sense that our shoulders go up, and like
Mm.
that. I really really loved it. I feel like it was such a great resource for going, oh, okay, I can interact with myself and my experience through
Mm.
them. So love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, great. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. And that's it. Now you've got that. You've unlocked that level. It's like it's so powerful in that space. That lovely smile and all this. It's like, yay, nervous system is listening. Thank you so much. Anybody else feel like sharing?
Yes. Hi. I just want to say thank you, because a lot of the information you shared actually helps me to make sense of what's happening in processing
Yeah,
stuff. So thank you.
yeah, good. Well done. And that's it now. It will just keep making sense. It will.
Mm.
That awareness is there now. So well done. Thank you. Anyone else feel like sharing?
Was wondering how you were going to piece it all together today because obviously I follow 95% of your workshops
Mhm.
and yeah, excited to see you so organized and having so many things for us to interact with and like
Mm.
including the charts and the activities because taking away from actually being in the same place at the same time is much different circumstance than where we all are now. So I think you
Mm.
brought it together really well and it can only get better from here. Hey, really well done for your first one, Amy.
Thank
Well
you
done.
so much. Thank you. And yeah, that's right. Like what I was sharing today was level one of the three-part certified course that I'm studying at the moment. So we are going to do another two of these. So there will be the next level two. I'll probably be sharing. It'll be mid-January, I think, because we've got Christmas in the middle, and then it'll be sort of mid to end of February for level three. So, and if any of you guys want to be in the resource sharing group on WhatsApp, where a lot you'll find all of these charts and tables, and you can have them, you can print them, you can keep them. Then message me with your phone number, and I can add you to the WhatsApp group. And there's a lot more resources in there if you enjoy the academic side of things. Anybody else want to share?
Yes, Amy, that was wonderful. Thank you for inviting me for this. It was a bit unexpected, but very much appreciated and welcomed. I was always curious about what somatic meant and what people do and what we talk about. So this was a great introduction to all of that and very well organized. And yeah, love your work. Thank you again.
Oh, I'm so glad you could make it here, Nick. Thank you for being here. I look forward to sharing more in the future. Okay, so we just take up a bit of space. And there was something I was thinking of doing, and so we talked a little bit about the power of mantra and vibrations in the body, and nothing gets us there and gets us there as a community more than song. So I'm not saying unmute yourself and belt it out, but I'm going to put a song on that I think at least the chorus will be familiar for people. And I just wanted to keep it really real so it's not like there's a lot of medicine music. Thank you, Mandy. A lot of medicine music and a lot of music that was created in slavery, where we would sing and we would sing our way into joy and connection. But I was just going to put on Red Hot Chili Peppers, Under the Bridge, because it's just something that these lyrics, they mean a lot to me as well. And if you know it, sing along, and this is going to be our closing song. Sound quality okay? I'm going to be singing, so hopefully it sounds okay. You can just be in your body and enjoy the music, a little bit of movement, expression, taking up space is okay. Sometimes I feel like I don't have the power now. Sometimes I feel like I'm all alone. The city I live in, the city of angels. Lonely as I am, together we cry. You don't know the words, you can hum.
Crank it up, Amy.
Better. The chorus. I don't know what I feel like. I just got to take me to the place I love. Take me all the way. I don't know what I feel like. I just got to take me to the place I love. Take me all the way. Hey, hey, hey. All right.
Woo!
Ah.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, so many beautiful songs out there, and they all can speak to the heart, in terms of we're all in this together, guys. We're all in this together. Unfortunately, we have all had struggles, but empoweringly, that gives us this capacity to have empathy and compassion and get together for collective healing. So, yeah, I hope to see you again for some collective healing sessions in the future, or just some joy. Or my inbox is always open if you guys ever want to tap into any of this anymore. But just give yourself a big hug. There's a big hug coming in from me. Sending peace with gratitude over and out. And has anybody wanted to share anything else? Just say goodbye. I've
Bye-bye.
recorded this, so
Bye,
it'll be
everyone.
available. I'll be putting it up on
Bye-bye.
the Facebook group and in the WhatsApp group. So yeah, if you guys want yourself removed from the recording, let me know and I'll do that before I put it out. Okay. Peace out,
That's
beautiful
nice.
souls. Thank you for your
Bye-bye.
participation today.
Bye, Soul Tribe.
Bye.
Thank you.